All right, today we're going to disassemble an LG G2X, which has a broken lens. So we'll start by removing the back panel and go ahead and take out your battery from the battery compartment, remove your SIM card and your micro SD card. Once all that's taken away from the phone, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 total screws holding the back housing on. Go ahead and take those out. They're a little stubborn as far as coming all the way out, so some of them might actually stay in the housing. Make sure you don't lose any of those. And once we do that, you can pry off the bottom plastic panel from beneath the battery compartment. This comes out fairly easily. Remember, don't put your pry tool in too far, but not too tough to get that one off. And then if we go to the top half of the phone, we're going to go ahead and take off this other panel that covers the logic board. Again, fairly easily. In fact, this whole project isn't too tough. Now on the logic board, you're going to have a total of 5 flex cables that you're going to disconnect. In addition to prying the speaker away from the place where it sits, because it's adhesived on. And you'll see later on that I kind of missed that the first time. So don't get too far ahead of me if you're following along with an actual disassembly. We got 2, 3, 4, and 1 more up in the other corner there for a total of 5. Don't worry about the camera. That can stay attached to the main board. And before we go any further, we also want to disconnect the antenna wires, one from the logic board and one down from the bottom half. And once we do that, you can see there are 2 black screws here in the center at the bottom, but near the charging port, and one towards the center of the logic board. And while I didn't point them out yet, there are also 2 at the bottom of the logic board, right in the middle of the phone. So we'll go ahead and remove the 2 from the bottom. One silver screw up here right next to the camera. And then you're going to have 2 more screws right here on the bottom half of the main board. I remember once we take these out, you'll see that I begin to pull the board out, and I see there's a little bit of resistance. Always be very gentle, very careful when you're pulling. If it feels like something's stuck or snagged or you're getting a lot of resistance, take your time and make sure you identify anything else that might be holding it in place. And as you can see right here, as is very common in Samsung phones, they have adhesive the speaker against the housing here, against the mid-frame. So we're going to have to pry that out first so we don't damage the wires that connect it to the logic board. I just took a small pin, anything you can find that'll fit in there. It's not too tough, you just need to get underneath it, pull that away, and then you've got your entire board pulled out. Now this mid-frame is going to be the next thing to go. So we're going to have to first remove a little rubber gasket up here at the top. And this one was a little bit stubborn. It's stuck in there pretty well. And of course, we don't want to rip it or anything like that. So in a minute here, I'm going to apply some heat just to loosen it up a little bit, make it more pliable and easier to remove. This is probably about the stickiest thing in this phone, other than the actual lens itself. So when we pull this out, there's only one wheel to go in. It's very obvious. You won't have any trouble getting that back into the proper place. Now we're going to have one big flex here. This is for the actual lens. I'm not too concerned about it here, but if you're trying to preserve the lens, maybe swapping out an LCD or something, you want to be real careful that you don't damage this flex cable. So just get underneath that with your pry tool. Pull it up to the top so it's out of the way. And from here, it's not too tough. Pretty easy to get this mid-frame removed from the rest of the phone. Might take a little bit of prying, but it comes apart relatively easily, as does the LCD. Pretty easy to get this one out. Not a lot of adhesive on the inside, but do be careful of this main flex on the LCD here. You definitely don't want to damage that during your repair. And the easiest spot that I found is right here below that flex. You can actually get under the LCD relatively easy. Like I said, not too much adhesive. Don't bend it. Don't force anything. Use a little bit of heat. There is some glue, some adhesive at the top here. And just go around very gently, very shallow pry here. Don't go too far inside or else you're going to make a mess and then have to clean your LCD again. So that'll pull up and out. without too much trouble. Set that aside and keep the dust off of it. And from this point, all we need to do is heat up the lens and pry it out. There aren't any hidden buttons that you have to worry about under the lens, as a lot of HTCs will actually have. So I start here generally in the center. And this one's a little bit tricky because it actually shattered right on. Oh, you see there the volume buttons actually fell out. As soon as you start prying the lens off, you'll see the volume buttons come out also. So don't lose those. And so we're just going to go around here very carefully. If necessary, you can use a little more heat. Shouldn't be too tough to get it off. And again, the only tricky part in this one is the lens actually shattered right on top of the camera, the front-facing camera. So I'm going to have to go back over that and try to clean it up, get some glass out of the way. And you can see that, if I remember correctly, part of the glass broke down here at the bottom, so it didn't all come off in one piece, and that's often going to be the case. Not too many times that you're going to get a perfect removal, but I've got a little bit of residual glass here. We want to pull that out. Make sure you don't have any glass left over if you go to apply your new lens and you have something stuck under there. That's going to just be very time consuming and make your life more difficult because you have to pull it out and clean it up again. You can see here that I'm going to pull the camera out from the back and just go ahead and clean that separately. I know that's a bad shot, but there's quite a bit of glass on top of that camera. I tried to scrape it off, and I ended up pulling that little gasket that sits on top of it away. And that shouldn't be a problem. Just went in and peeled that off because there was a very small shards of glass stuck to that. And from this point, you should be good. You will hopefully not have to cut any custom adhesive. I had to on this one. Oh, and there is a gasket here also on the back of the original lens. So I'm going to go under that with the razor blade, just very careful. It's pretty easy to get off in one piece as long as it's not broken right on that spot too badly. So just kind of went under this with the razor blade, pull that away from the original lens and set that aside. And we can put that right onto the new lens with the same adhesive. I'm not going to bother. This is just kind of a gasket that seals the LCD on the lens so that dust can't get inside there. And again, just line it up with the new lens until you feel like you have a pretty good fit compared to the original. Not too tough, but it's going to keep your LCD nice and clean in the future. And didn't get it right the first time, so I'm trying again here to line this up properly. And of course, the reassembly is just the opposite of this video.